Hi there and welcome back for our next video in our series on how to write. In this video, we're going to be tackling the use of evidence, particularly in the DBQ. So we're going to be talking about both document evidence and also outside evidence. I'm your APUSH Lady Boss. I've been teaching APUS history for over a decade. I have my master's in American history and curriculum and instruction, and I've been an AP grader for 5 years. I hope that you can trust that this is my tried and true method for incorporating evidence. And I hope that it's very useful for you, not only in AP US history, but also AP World and AP European history. So let's get started. So what we first want to do is make sure that we're understanding the scoring criteria and decision rules. So our first point related to use of evidence is using the content of 3 documents. And you must describe rather than quote the documents, and at least 3. To get a second point, you must use at least 6 documents. So it's important to note here that using 2 documents would be the equivalent of using none, because you don't get that first point until you use 3. Using 5 documents would be the equivalent of using 3 documents, because you don't get that second point until you've used 6. And then the third point related to evidence is using 1 additional piece of specific evidence beyond that found in the documents. This is most often referred to as outside evidence. So total of 3 points here related to use of evidence, and these rules apply for AP US, World, and European history. So again, 3 documents, 6 documents, outside evidence. Those are the key here. So what is the use of evidence? The incorporation of specific people, places, developments, processes, etc., and or documents to support your argument. So this is the prompt we're going to continue to go through. We want to evaluate the extent to which transatlantic voyages in the period from 1491 to 1607 affected the Americas. This comes from the APUSH prompts in 2021. However, this is a concept that is used in all 3 of the AP histories. Now, if you have not followed along with any of my other videos, I highly encourage you to at least go back and watch the thesis video, because this first step really has to be done before you do your thesis. And then you go through and move on to your body paragraphs. So you want to brainstorm your evidence. You can pause the video right now if you want to take a minute to brainstorm evidence related to this prompt. But here are some ideas that you could have come up with: disease, Columbian exchange, linguistic and religious changes, alliances, all kinds of things related to changes in the Americas as a result of transatlantic voyages. Then you want to organize your evidence into topics, but focus on the skill of the prompt. Now, our prompt is talking about how much change occurred as a result of these voyages. So I have come up with 4 potential body paragraphs. 3 are related to change. So changes in demographics, changes in their cultural adaptations, changes to the economy, and then 1 continuity. One thing that is pretty much staying the same for the majority of the continent is the control and sovereignty of indigenous peoples. Now, this would not be true, especially if we think about present-day Mexico. By 1607, there was a large Spanish empire there, but for the majority of the Americas, there was some continuity here. So then what you want to do is you want to choose your counter argument and your 2 main arguments. So my counter argument would be continuity, and my main arguments would be economic and demographic changes. Okay, so based on all of this, I came up with a preliminary thesis. Despite the Americas remaining primarily controlled by American Indian tribes, because of significant changes in demographics and new economic systems and opportunities, the impact of transatlantic voyages was consequential and catastrophic. Okay, so all of this is the work that I did in my thesis video. Now, if you are moving with me onto the use of evidence, I encourage you to grab the downloadable notes in the description here, because you're going to be able to practice and take notes as I go through the next steps here. So your next step is to read, analyze, and add documents to your outline. So I've taken my 4 body paragraph options. Option 1, changes in economics, and the evidence there that I had found or that I had categorized. Body paragraph 2, changes in culture. I did not include this idea in my preliminary thesis. It's not a body paragraph I plan to do. However, sometimes the documents don't fit with your argument, and so it's important to still leave it as an option in case there are documents related to this topic. Body paragraph 3, changes in demographics, and then body paragraph 4, continental control. So now what you're going to want to do is you're going to click for the documents. The APUSH prompt was an LEQ, not a DBQ. So I have found 7 primary and secondary sources to turn this prompt into a DBQ for us to practice. So here's your first document. I want you to pause and actually read this document. Now that you've read the document, you understand that this is a justification for the enslavement and treatment of American Indians in the Spanish Empire. So after you've read this document, you should consider, where does this document best fit? And many documents will actually fit in multiple body paragraphs. It's up to you to determine which one you think is a best fit. So based on my reading and interpretation, I think that I could easily fit this into the changes in economics paragraph because it's talking about the enslavement of American Indians. I think I could also fit it into the cultural paragraph because we see significant cultural changes, religious adaptations that are being forced upon American Indians. Honestly, it could also fit in demographics because it's talking about some of the or you can imply some of the death that occurred based on these interactions. So what I've decided is that I think it best fits in changes in economics. Now you're going to continue to do the same with your next document. So document 2 here, you can pause and go through each of these documents on your own and put them where you think they best fit. So document 2, we've got the history of smallpox. The history of smallpox is talking about the impact of disease, but then that last paragraph also is referencing the impact of Christianity. It's talking about famine, labor, all kinds of ideas here. So I think this one would fit in changes in demographics. And I also think it would fit in changes in culture. However, with the fact that it is primarily based on disease, I'm going to put it here in changes in demographics. Now, I had disease listed as outside evidence, but that clearly is here in the document. So what that means is that disease can no longer be an option for me in my outside evidence. Document 3, I want to point out here, if this isn't large enough for you, all those little tiny words on this map are different American Indian tribes. So think about what is being depicted here when you can see that there are dozens of different American Indian tribes listed on this map from 1607 to 1630. So because of that, I see document 3 as being best fit here as a continuity, showing that even by 1607, American Indians were still had regional control of the majority of the Americas. Document 4 here is depicting a sugar plantation. So I see this one really being a good fit for changes in economics or changes in demographics. Now, what I've decided just for me is I think changes in demographics would be the best fit here because it's showing that Africans are now living in the Americas. Document 5, another image here, a variety of things being shown, but I think the most prominent thing is going to be the crosses with the priest here, showing the importance of Christianity. And so I think that's a really good fit for changes in culture. Document 6, take a minute here to read this. This is one that my students sometimes struggle with. They don't understand, why are we talking about the horse? But I have to remind them back to the information about how the horse, or the modern horse, is not native to the Americas. And so I asked them to infer, how could the horse impact life in the Americas? And so what they usually come up with is that it would lead to significant changes in in economics. It would lead to types of work being easier. It would impact hunting and gathering. It could have impacts in transportation. And so usually with document 6, we move to changes in economics. All right, our final document here, another one that you want to pause and read through. but this is describing what has happened to the environment as a result of European arrival. And what we see, it's talking about in paragraph 2, livestock grazing and the impact of that livestock grazing. It also talks about how the earth is now viewed as a vehicle for production. And so the way I see this best fitting is going to be also in changes in economics. All right, so you've read, you've analyzed your documents. Now, step 3 is to formalize your outline and your thesis. So I found that documents 1, 6, and 7 best fit in body paragraph 1, 5 in body paragraph 2, 2 and 4 in body paragraph 3, and 3 in body paragraph 4. So I wasn't planning on using body paragraph 2. And I don't need to. Only one document is related to this body paragraph. So what that means is that I can still use 6 documents without this body paragraph. So I do not need to adjust my thesis. However, sometimes you might have to make adjustments at this point if the documents don't fit the argument that you had originally planned for. Now you're going to select your outside evidence. You only need one. I encourage you to have one per body paragraph. However, that is extra. So I think my best piece of outside evidence is the Columbian Exchange. So now we're going to move to step 4, which is actually writing a body paragraph. And we're going to practice with body paragraph option 3, changes in demographics. So look back at your documents, reference documents 2 and 4, consider the Columbian Exchange, and we're going to use this formula to actually write this body paragraph. So you want to start off with your topic sentence. You want to introduce the topic, which is demographics, and the skill, which is changes. Next, introduce your evidence. Give a brief statement that shows what you're going to talk about, what is included in the first document. And then cite your documents. Include some actual information from this first document. It's obviously not necessarily document 1. The first one you might reference could be document 5. Then, this is important. A lot of students don't do this. They just kind of go from evidence to evidence to evidence, but you want to link the document to the thesis and the skill. Reinforce what this is showing about changes in demographics. Now, sentence 5, I encourage you to incorporate outside evidence. This isn't necessary. This can actually happen at any point in your body paragraph. I just think sometimes it provides a nice link between the 2 documents that you're citing in your body paragraph. Then you're going to introduce the evidence, the topic of the second document, kind of an introductory sentence here, not digging into a lot of the details. But then you provide those details when you cite the document. Then you link the document to the thesis and skill. Now, this is where I see a lot of students end their paragraph. They think, okay, I've done my document, I've done my outside evidence, I've done my document, boom, move on. But sentence 9 is key. Conclude and summarize. Connect back to the thesis and the skill. Reinforce the changes that are happening with demographics. So take a minute, pause the video, and do that for yourself. Practice these 9 sentences using documents 2 and 4, or a completely different body paragraph if you feel more comfortable with that. Now I'm going to give you this sample body paragraph. Here is your topic sentence. As a result of the transatlantic voyages in the 15th and 16th century, American demographics changed significantly. Pretty simple. In fact, I'm taking this basically straight from my thesis. Perfectly fine. The population of American Indians was drastically reduced during these years. So here I'm providing the introduction to more of a specific aspect of American demographics. Now I'm moving to citing the document. In Doc 2, Moore describes the devastation caused by not only diseases such as smallpox and measles, but also because of the massacre, slavery, and famine inflicted upon indigenous peoples by Europeans. Now I'm going to link it. While warfare and famine were not new to American Indian societies, the intensity of violence and abundance of wealth increased in abundance of death increased enormously during this period. So I'm really reiterating and reinforcing that skill of change. Here's my outside evidence. The impact of the spread of disease as a result of the Columbian exchange was catastrophic. You can be this brief in a DBQ. Usually it's better to explain it a bit more. In the LAQ, you really have to do a good job of explaining the outside evidence, but here this would be enough. All right, now I'm going to introduce the information from my second document. Another major change to demographics in the Americas was the growth of the African population. In Doc 4, a sugar plantation is depicted with Africans laboring while a white overseer is watching. Now I'm going to link it. Because many American Indians died from initial European encounters, the Spanish obtained free labor through the transatlantic slave trade, which brought millions of Africans to the Americas. Now, finally, sentence 9 here. Due to the transatlantic voyages, demographics in the Americas rapidly and substantially changed as Europeans settled, the American Indian population was devastated, and Africans were enslaved in this new world. So, 9 sentences can feel a bit overwhelming, but if I were to do this in 3 body paragraphs, I would guarantee that I am getting all 3 evidence points, which is huge. That's a huge amount of your rubric. To do that solidly gets you definitely into the passing range here. So let's practice evaluating these use of evidence statements. Here's your first one. The arrival of Europeans in the Americas disrupted Native American societies because of the introduction of new diseases like smallpox. Many natives died, and their weakened societies could be defeated by European conquerors. What do you think? Specific? Supporting the argument? Yes, it is specific. We've got smallpox. We've got the effect explained. Both. This is a very good use of evidence. Native American societies gained use of new goods, such as metal tools, and prestige goods, such as jewelry, through trade with European voyagers. Yep, this one is specific and supports the argument as well. Number 3, the Spanish instituted the encomienda in America. Much briefer here, but does it get the point? Yes, it is specific. For the DBQ, this is enough. For the LAQ, we usually need a bit more explanation. The British king passed the Proclamation of 1763 to stop wars between colonists and Indians. It's specific, but it's wrong. It is not within the time period. This is probably the biggest thing I see with outside evidence. The biggest error that I see is that students are using evidence outside of the time period. So while this isn't a class where you have to memorize a whole bunch of dates, you do need to pay attention to chronology. And also, this says Proclamation of 1763, where the prompt is clearly until 1607. So just make sure you're paying attention to those specific dates and not making a simple error like you see here. So what should you do if this still feels too challenging for you right now? Well, let's simplify. Remember your rubric reminder. Use of evidence deals with 3 points, using 3 documents, 6 documents, outside evidence. The best way to simplify this for yourself is to just sacrifice a point. And that is going to be using 6 documents. You just need to decide, I'm either going to do 3 really well or 6 not so well. I'm going to be really overwhelmed, or I'm going to make this manageable. So the easiest way to do this is to sacrifice a point and try to use 3 documents, 1 per body paragraph, and a piece of outside evidence. So this would be your formula. Use a topic sentence. Introduce and cite the document together. You probably need to have a more complex sentence here for sentence 2, but it can be done in 1 sentence. Incorporate your outside evidence, and then conclude and link the thesis and skill. If you do this with 3 body paragraphs, you're going to be getting 2 points, which still out of 3 is a great amount of points on the rubric for this part. So here's your example. As a result of the transatlantic voyages, American demographics changed significantly. Once again, basically just taken straight from the thesis. Not only did diseases wipe out American Indian populations, but also massacre, slavery, and famine further devastated the American peoples. And then I cited Doc 2. Now, some outside evidence. The impact of the spread of disease as a result of the Columbian Exchange was catastrophic. And now, finally, here, due to the transatlantic voyages, demographics in the Americas rapidly and substantially changed as the American Indian population was devastated by disease, massacres, slavery, and famine. This is much briefer. It's 4 sentences instead of 9. It's only using one document, and still the Columbian Exchange is outside evidence. But like I said, if you did this 3 times, you likely would be earning 2 out of the 3 points for the use of evidence category. So I hope that this breakdown was really helpful for you in understanding how to incorporate evidence, giving you a formula for your body paragraphs. If so, please like and subscribe.